You're watching Tri Vibes TV. Welcome to another weekly training video where I'm here to talk through all of the training I'm doing to prepare for Ironman Texas coming up in just about 10 weeks. In today's video, we'll take a look at my triathlon training last week day by day. We'll take a look at my training plan for the week coming up ahead, and we'll check in on the Garmin health and performance metrics that we've been tracking week after week here. So, starting off, last week was a fantastic week of training, and I really needed it. It was really nice to have a week that felt just great after having 2 weeks that felt a little less than great. The previous 2 weeks of training were a little bit difficult. I ended up having to take a few days off and having a really tough interval ride last weekend. And after I finished that ride, I was really committed to trying to make the next week of training better, and I really feel like I was successful in that. So let's dive in day by day, and I'll talk through about why I feel like last week was such a good week of training. So started out the week with a nice Monday, got an easy run done, and that was actually the only training that I did. And I think that was a nice sort of reset for me, just a nice easy day after a really challenging interval ride the previous day before. On Tuesday, I hit the gym in the morning, got my strength training done, felt really empowered. I felt better after that strength training session than I did before. I felt ready to go and tackle my ride, and I had a really good high output, pretty solid interval session, to be honest, for me. About 30 minutes of zone 4 threshold effort mixed up across some varying intervals here, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then I repeated it, and really impressed with my average power for that hour, coming in right around 248, nominal power 272 for an hour, and I was holding right around 315 watts, so right around my FTP for these intervals, and I felt on top of them. So good strength training session, great bike ride, and then I went and had a run that was on the spicier side. I averaged 743, which is considerably faster than I've been running. A lot of my brick runs and a lot of my easy runs lately have been much slower, about 845, 850, so this was a quicker paced run, which felt really good. On Wednesday, I continued the trend of faster paced running and did some speed work. This is the first time that I've done any 10K type of pace efforts in a number of weeks, and I was apprehensive but also excited to get out and do the first one. I was nervous about doing 5 of them, but I told myself that just get out, do the first one, and you might feel better than you think, and that is pretty much how it went. The first interval set that I actually did all of them about 4 minutes. So it says 5 by 5 minutes, but I have a loop around here at the park that I run that worked out to right around 4 minutes for each lap. So I just went with that instead. First one knocked it out in 6:52 pace, which I basically settled on being about 30 seconds off of my previous 10K target pace. All of my paces have sort of shifted a little bit slower. I've gained some weight. I haven't been focusing on speed work, and so I'm giving myself about 30 seconds on top of whatever my paces were when I was running a little bit faster last year. So I think previously my 10K pace was in the 620s, so I just bumped that up in my mind to about 650, told myself anything under 7 was going to be solid, and I did the rest of them right around the same. So 650, 652, 653, and then I believe I had one of them that was a little bit faster. But either way, getting out, running that type of pace on Wednesday was another really nice confidence booster, and that carried over into Thursday. Had a really good strength training session again on Thursday morning. Thing that stood out for me on Thursday during my strength training was doing some deadlifts and just feeling so much more confident in the movement and just feeling great after doing them. It's hard to describe. I did 2 different types of deadlifts on Thursday. One of them was just with the regular bar on the ground, like the classical deadlift, you might say. Did that with about 145 pounds. So not a lot of weight, but for me, that's like a big step. I started out with about 95 pounds when I first got into this over the summer. And then I also did some Romanian deadlifts with the kettlebell right after that. So two different types of deadlift. And I was really curious to see how my legs were going to feel on my 2 hour ride later in the day. And I felt really solid for 2 hours on Thursday after doing those deadlifts. And I really just, I feel the strength training working, and it isn't having a negative impact on my cycling. Like, I was really nervous getting into this, doing my strength training and cycling on the same day, that I would be kind of zapped from my bike workouts. But I think last week I got very, emboldened in the way that I can handle the strength training and the bike riding in the same day, and I'm feeling pretty good about that. So Thursday, good day. Friday, only time I actually got to the pool last week was Friday, and I swam 2,000 yards. It felt a little slow. That's to be expected if I haven't been in the water for a week, but I did check that box, and I tried to take advantage of the rest of the day and take it easy to get ready for the weekend's training. So let's take a look at the weekend's training, because that was really kind of the icing on the cake. Really good prep during the week. And on my long run on Saturday, I really tried to embrace the lower heart rate, slower pace that I've been trying to embrace. And I feel like this Saturday's 14-mile run was much better than the 14-mile run that I did 2 weeks ago. I felt stronger by the end. I felt more relaxed at the end. I think that my overall pace was actually a little bit quicker. Like, I hit the half marathon mark around an hour 56 minutes. So that's like 3:52 marathon pace, which is flying for me. And when I'm considering, what I'm trying to do at Ironman Texas, anything close to that pace would be fantastic. And I ultimately feel like the gauge of success for that long run was the way that I felt during the day afterwards, meaning I was able to keep the effort manageably easy enough that I wasn't super sore during the rest of the day. I was a little stiff moving around, but really felt pretty good and didn't feel like I was, starting the next training day with, my hand tied behind my back, because I've had some days where, after the long run, where I just feel dehydrated, I feel tired, sitting down for an hour and then getting up, it just like hurts to stand up and all that. Didn't really have that issue on Saturday, and I really think that embracing a little bit of a slower pace and a lower heart rate, it was key for that. Which brings us to, actually, one thing I wanted to look at real quickly was what these splits looked like. So really, I just went around and around and around and around. And I think it's really interesting that, like, my beginning, let's take a look at like one of my first intervals. So that's 15 minutes of running, 8:51. And let's take a look at this one, 8:51. So what I'm basically trying to illustrate is that, like, I was very consistent with my pace, meaning that within the first 10 minutes, I found that pace and I kept it right there for about 2 hours. Like, I really didn't speed up or slow down, and it was a very consistent run. So on to yesterday's long ride. I rode 80 miles on Zwift, so 80 virtual miles on the bike yesterday. And I took this whole idea of taking it easier and really, really leaned into it. I originally had thought, the training plan that I had called for easy zone 2 to zone 3. And I didn't necessarily feel like trying to push up through zone 2 and get into my zone 3 power output, because I was curious to see if I kept my heart rate really low, kept my power output really low. I wanted to see if I would feel better in the last hour of the ride, because in previous weeks, long rides, I've been okay up to about the 3 hour mark. And then after that point, it's been more of a struggle. So I just did a few simple things and made my 4 hour training ride feel much better this week. So I got the right nutrition. I placed an order with Crank Sports. I got my eFuel and my eGels, products that I'm really used to using that I haven't had for the last couple of weeks. So I got those products, and I really stuck to a tried and true nutrition plan for my indoor ride this Sunday. So that was 2 bottles every hour. I drank 8 bottles in 4 hours. I was really strict on the hydration and the nutrition, and I think that had a huge impact. The other thing that I did was I resisted the urge to increase my power, although my heart rate was staying low. So I did the first 2 hours and my heart rate was much lower than zone 2. And I feel like it was tempting to say, okay, I should be able to technically rise my heart rate up a little bit higher and feel okay. I'm below my zone 2. Let's try to push up the heart rate and get it a little bit higher and maybe ride a little bit harder, increase the power. And I decided to not do that. And instead I decided to just increase the power very minimally. And it worked out really well because the final hour of the ride, I felt really good. And I was able to push about 220 watts. I experimented a little bit towards the end, and I spent a little bit of time at a higher output than I had. But if you look, it's very, very consistent. I warmed up for 45 minutes and then stuck right around 195, 197. Then I upped it to 205, stayed around there, 205, 212, still around 205, 212. And then I think it's right here, 211, 210, 212. Very consistent. And ultimately, the way that I felt after that 4-hour ride was I felt relaxed. I didn't feel like I had overdone it. And I ran a very enjoyable 2 miles off the bike at 8:20 per mile, flying, just absolutely great pace to run off of a 4-hour ride. And honestly, I don't think I have ever felt better running after a long bike ride than how I did yesterday. So I think that hopefully kind of establishes why I felt like last week was such a great week of training. I wish they could all go that well. So let's take a look at the week of training coming up. Quick look here. Swim today, felt good, 3,100 yards. Good to have a really nice long swim under my belt to start the week out. Hopefully I'll get to do some yoga tonight on Monday night yoga. Hopefully we'll get that done. Tomorrow I've got another strength training session in the morning. Interval ride on the bike, 1 by 15-minute zone 3, 1 by 10-minute zone 4, 1 by 5-minute zone 5. Oh boy, that sounds fun. And then we'll do a brick run off the bike, 20 minutes. On Wednesday, I've got some speed work, 3 by 7-minute at marathon effort with 5-minute recovery at easy pace. Thursday, I've got my strength training. I've got a swim and a 90-minute bike ride. And Friday, I have an off day. I might talk to my coach about I don't know how important it's going to be for me to have this full rest day. I wonder if maybe moving one of these sessions to Friday might make more sense. So we'll figure that out. And on Saturday, 11 miles, easy pace. That sounds great. And Sunday, this is going to be the big one. 90-mile outdoor ride, 90 miles or 4.5 hours, whichever comes first, followed by a 3-mile transition run. I'm ready for that. I am absolutely ready for a 90-mile ride on the road. I've been going a little bit crazy doing these indoor trainer rides, but I've enjoyed, spending some time with some other, I'm doing these rides on YouTube, so I have people in the comments. I'm not doing them by myself, but I still would really appreciate some time on the road. So looking forward to getting the bike out on the road this Sunday for a big ride, 4.5 hours or 90 miles, whichever comes first. That sounds great. Before we end the video, I want to check in really quick with the Garmin stuff because we've been looking at this week after week. And also, I got to celebrate here. Look at this, y'all. I am productive training status. As of today, hot off the presses, finished my swim, bloop, productive. And as you can see, I have not had a productive training status for quite some time. In the last 6 months, I've only had it. I had back in December was the last time I had it. So as of today, I've improved from strained to productive, and that is because my heart rate variability has just drifted back up into unbalanced rather than low. So we'll see if I can keep my HRV status good, and maybe next Monday I'll have a little chunk of green here on this graph. That would be pretty cool. Again, not making any training decisions based off of this information in Garmin, but it has been fun here to track it. Also, my training load, obviously, I'm increasing that plateau up, spending more time at a higher training load, and I feel pretty good about that as well. So things are looking pretty good around here. Things are feeling pretty good this week. I'm glad I have a little bit more of a positive look at the week's training than I did the last couple of weeks, and I think that's just Ironman training. I think there's going to be sort of peaks and valleys, and I'm really hopeful that I can keep this sort of peak feeling good going for another week or two, couple weeks, all the way through to race day. You never know, man. So appreciate you taking the time to check this out. As usual, if you have anything to comment, add, question about, drop it in the comments, and I'll be back next Monday with another update.